welcome back. Right, part 2 of this is going to be the primary oil change. Pretty much a simple job, probably even simpler than the gearbox oil change we did last time, but there's a couple of things that are extremely important. I'm going to try and dispel one of the biggest myths and concerns and confusions that there ever has been about the drain plug in the primary, which is always something that is a massive subject on forums. So welcome to part 2, primary oil change. Okay, got everything ready. Right, now before I get involved in this and start getting stuck in and pulling it apart, I want to talk to you a little bit about what we're actually doing, because this video and the rest of this whole series are being pitched at the absolute new mechanic, the complete newbie who's never done anything like this before. So we're hoping that we can give you a little bit of understanding outside of just what you do. There's plenty of videos on the net about stick the pan under, drain the oil out, fill it up through that hole. Yep, you can do that, no problem at all. And if you know about this stuff and you know about engines and bikes, then all you're looking for is the cues of what to do and where to fill it. Simple. But if you're absolutely a new mechanic, we want to try and give you a little bit more understanding, a little bit more learning, so that you get knowledge that you can grow upon. I believe that all knowledge is like a little tree. You plant the seed, you water it, we leave that then with you, and then you can allow it to grow and nurture it for yourself. But without that basic understanding, you haven't got the seed in the first place. Does that make sense, Ben?
It does.
Let's hope so. Okay, so what we got here? Primary oil change. What is primary oil? Well, it's oil, but what is a primary? Primary drive. This is the primary drive on the left-hand side of a Harley engine. What does it actually do? Well, it's a big old chain that lives inside here. You've got a clutch at the back and a pulley at the front, or a big sprocket. It's a big fat double row chain, and it drives the gearbox externally from the engine. See, most motorcycles, the engine and the gear, or the crankshaft, the actual power that's created from the pistons and the crank, they're all contained within the same big casing that the gearbox is. They're all linked internally with either gears or little tiny fat chains inside. So one way or another, Harley are practically unique. There's a few other manufacturers who do it, but the engine and gearbox are separate. That's why we have separate engine oil and separate gearbox oil. We drive the gearbox by putting the power from the engine to it via a big chain. Now that's as old as the hills, as is the design of a Harley Davidson. Go back to a 1903 Harley, it had a pulley at the bottom with a big old belt that drove the clutch. As simple as that. And it hasn't really changed. It's become more efficient, it doesn't leak anymore, but it is practically the same design. So because this casing contains a big old chain that is separate from the gearbox, separate from the engine, it has separate oil. And we need to change the oil because, like all oil, it breaks down. So you fill it up through this big casing here. This is referred to most of the time as the derby cover. And it's called that because back in the day, this flat cover, this big disc here that we're going to take off in a second, that was shaped like a derby bowler hat. So it was always nicknamed the derby cover. So this big, or clutch inspection cover, we're going to take that plate off first. Inside there is where we can see the clutch, and I'm going to drain the oil out once that's happened. But before I drain the oil, I want to check the level to make sure that it's correct, because I'm going to put the same amount back in. So let's get this cover off. And it's screwed on with Torx screws, the little spline type things, and it's a unique size to practically the rest of your bike. It's Torx 27. Come on in, Pam. This, if you buy a set of Torx bits, that's Torx 27, T27. Very important, because when you put the Torx bit itself in the screw head, a 25 will kind of, it'll feel all right, yeah, that will go in, but a 27 fits snug. And if you go pushing a 25 in there, most sets go 20, 25, 30. They skip the T27. So if you buy a set of Torx bits, make sure, if you have a Harley, that they come with a T27. If not, then buy a separate T27. I don't know why it's missed out, perhaps it's just an odd number, but it is something important to remember. Now, when you undo them, it is a big old cover, so I'm just going to undo them in a star pattern. That means don't do any two of them next to each other. Always come like that, that's what I mean. There we go. Alright, so the purpose of what I'm doing first is to check the oil level, because there's a lot of conjecture on the net in different forums about what the correct oil level is. What they tell you is 26 fluid ounces of oil, simple as that. And if you're using this Syn 3, it's an American product, so it comes in fluid ounces and you can work that out. However, you'll hear people argue, no, I had to put another couple of fluid ounces in to come up to level and so on. It is critical that you get the oil level in this correct. If you don't, if you put too much in, the clutch will drag, which will mean that when you pull the clutch in, it will still drive forward, because the plates themselves, and there's too much oil, they'll get soaked in oil, and that oil will glue those clutch plates together, all sticky, and they won't separate, and that means the bike will drag you up the road. It won't stop properly. Also, trying to find neutral will be practically impossible, so you must never overfill it with oil. So the good thing to do is, I'm going to measure how much, I'm going to check what's in there, make sure it's correct, then drain it out, measure it, and put exactly the same amount back in, and it will come up to the correct amount. Simple, isn't it? So to check it first, come on in, Pam. So, if you can see that oil level, if I go down in here, can you see that? Mm-hmm. You see me touching the oil? Mm-hmm. So if you dip this in and out of the oil, you can see the level. You can't quite see it by just looking, but I'm just checking that there, and that's absolutely correct. You can see that just dipping in that stick at the end. There we go. Okay, this one again, T30 this time on this particular bike, 2005 Softail, and it fits nice and snug. Pop it right in. And that came out with literally finger pressure. It wasn't tight, and I'm going to come to that in a minute, because the reinstallation of this plug is quite important, because it doesn't have a torque setting. There we go. Okay, as we did on the last one, we examined the drain plug because it's an enormous source of information and it will tell you about the health of your engine. So come and have a look, man. You can see by touching it on a metal surface that it has a magnet in it, and you can see when I rub it like that, that what's coming off it is this kind of grey, silvery grey deposit, which is a combination of carbon from the clutch plates themselves, where they've got hot, and other impurities. But what you are looking for is bits, chips, like the last gearbox oil change, just little chips, little grains of silver shiny stuff, panning for silver, as they say. If you see that, then you obviously may have, if there are chips in the oil or there are chips stuck to the end of this magnet where they're most likely to be, then you may have a misalignment on the chain, or the clutch may be wearing out or something. Certainly if they're a goldy colour, then that may be coming off the metal clutch plates. But that is absolutely healthy, and I'm really chuffed about that. I want to talk also about plugs. There are two different kinds of drain plugs on primary cases. This is the primary case, that's its drain plug, and this particular one is a parallel one. You also get a tapered one. Now if the size of the drain plug, this is how to tell the difference between the two. If the Torx bit that you use, come on in Ben, let me actually show it. This is a T30, let's take it out of the thing. That's a T30 Torx bit, and it fits in perfectly. And if you look closely at this thread, it's a parallel thread. It's a regular, ordinary thread. It's not tapered. Now, there are two kinds, as I said. The other kind, which I don't have to show you, is a tapered thread. You can kind of look at it and you'll see that the thread goes in a taper, and that will be a T40. So the way to tell whether you have a tapered thread plug or a straight thread plug is the size of the Torx bit that you use. This is a T30, and that's a parallel one, that's the small drain plug. The T40, which is the bigger Torx bit, that's the tapered plug, and that uses a pipe thread. It's a pipe thread cut in the casing. So when you do that one up, the tapered one, if you have one of those, you wrap some of that white PTFE plumber's tape round the thread, and you just wind it in until it feels medium tight. There is no torque setting for that. But this one on the other hand, and I'm very happy that I've got this because this is my favourite type. This is a regular drain plug. It has a little tiny O-ring and you do it up and it will stop dead when you get it in flush. So let's put the O-ring on it. Okay, just another word about this gasket set that I bought for the bike. This particular one, get in there, there it is, that's the little one I want. Now this particular set, as you can see, it's a mildly universal set. There's the drain plug O-ring for the engine. This oval one we see here is the drain, or that's the inspection cover here, as you can see. But what you also get is this square gasket here. So just in case that's confusing, this is a universal gasket set. It fits all primary covers. If you look at the early touring models being the Road King, the Street Glide, the Ultra, all the big ones that have got the big shocks on the back and the big boxes and touring gear, their casing, one of these will have a square case there. So that gives you the gasket for that particular bike. So what it means is that Harley can give this gasket set for anybody who wants a primary cover gasket set. Simple as that. It's a little bit easier than just having separate gaskets, and also cheaper as well. Right, so I've got my new gasket, same as before. Flip the old one off, always replace O-rings. Honestly, they don't cost too much. There it is, take that off. No matter how good it looks, just put a new one on. Check the thread itself, which we've already done. It's nice and clean and straight, no nicks in it. And now we're going to do again what we did on the other drain plug. We're going to put some little bit of Hylamar on that just to seal it. Right, a little bit more of the blue Hylamar product. Spread on there. And we just spread it into the thread itself. But as I said in the last video, it's very important to make sure that you don't get any on the magnet itself, because the magnet needs to be completely clear so that it can pick up the little chips, should there be any in there. So there we are, lots of it in the thread. I'm going to set that to one side, just ready to dry. Now obviously this Hylamar product, I'm not advertising this is not some paid promotion. I've had this tube of Hylamar for 20 years. If you invest in this, it's a petrol proof and oil proof sticky sealant that will stay wet and sticky forever. Now that means that because it stays wet and sticky, it acts as a lubricant. So when I put that plug in, it will stay in, it will slide in nicely and snuck up, and it will stay there because it's sticky. It will prevent it from just winding itself out. So use Hylamar if you can. It doesn't cost about a tenner a tube, but that tube's lasted me 20 years. You only ever use the tiny certain amount. It's a good thing to have in your toolbox. Okay, while that's just draining out the last couple of drops, I want to talk about draining this hot and cold. You'll see in the manual sometimes recommended to drain the oil in the primary when it's hot, and the gearbox as well. Now there's a different school of thought on both of those, and I think we touched on this on a previous oil change on another bike that I did that had been laid up. Now the principle is, if it's been cold and it's been sat still for a long time, and as is in here, that the motorcycle is in a warm room temperature, which it is, then that oil should flow out fine. If you warm this bike up, you splattered this oil all around the inside of that casing, and that could take quite a few hours for all of that that's inside the case all stuck around the top to eventually drain down. Whereas if it's been sat cold, doing nothing for a day or two, all of the oil is at the bottom and more of it will drain out. Now I've measured that in practice with the Triumph that we did recently, and I managed to get probably 1.5 to 2 fluid ounces more oil out than I normally do on a regular hot oil change. So go figure. Honestly, more oil coming out is all good. Some argue that you're not mobilizing the little particles, which, when that's the principle. With engine oil, you definitely warm it up before you drain it out, because there are particles stuck all around the engine, and it's good to mobilize them and get them into the oil so they can come out. But with the primary case and the gearbox, I've always drained them cold, and it seems to work fine. You get more out than you normally would. So anyway, that's pretty much drained. I'm going to put the plug back in, and then we're going to work out the quantity. Now that drain plug goes in almost all the way in by hand with no tools attached. And what I'm going to do is something that I hear all the time people saying it's called palming it. And what that means is, if you've ever heard a mechanic say, I just palmed it in, it means putting the ratchet in the palm of your hand and holding it like that, not like this, which gives you the leverage of the handle. If you palm it, you do it like that or like that. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to put that little case in there and stand up to it, and with no wrist, with no hand leverage at all, I'm just going to palm that in till it feels about right. Right, there we are. Now, there is much chit chat on the internet about how you do this up. People asking in desperation on forums, what on earth is the Torx setting? I can't find one for the Torx setting on this. So consider that you're doing that up about as tight as you do up a crosshead screw. If you think of it like that, you'll never over tighten it. The tapered thread system is exactly the same. You put a bit of tape around it, you wind it in until it feels right. Now this is where you as a novice mechanic start gaining knowledge and dexterity skills. Skills of how to feel for things. You'll hear mechanics talk about feel it, just feel for it. That's the skill of experience that you will develop. So as soon as I come and check that, if I find any residue, I'll just get my ratchet again, give it an 1/8 of a turn, maybe no more, and it will stop weeping. But don't be tempted to keep doing it up tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. Tight is not always best. This is what we're trying to do on this channel, is to prevent you having serious expensive mistakes. If you wind it up too tight, you'll strip the thread, because these casings are made from pot metal. It's just a lightweight cast aluminium and it's very fragile. If you've got the tapered thread bung or plug, then you can actually crack it, because as you're pushing a taper into a tapered thread too much, and you'll literally snap that thread, you'll crack it open, and one of these cases is many hundreds of pounds, and you just don't need the grief. So seriously, feel for it, palm it like I said in your hand, and don't use any leverage. Right, is that right, Ben?
That's it.
That makes sense? Right, that's the bung back in, let's fill it up. Right, that's quite important. I started with a bone dry drain pan and a bone dry jug, so that all that's in here is what was in the primary case. Right, now I make my point again that no matter how many times people say always drain the oil hot, I always manage to get more oil out when I drain it cold. And again, go figure, because here we are, the recommended amount of oil that you might put in your primary transmission is 760 mils, 26 fluid ounces, whatever, but I've got 900 mils, practically a full litre has come out of that, which to me seems, you know, if I've got that much out, then I want that much back in. That's why I did it this way. I've just measured the amount that came out, and if I'd gone and put now the recommended amount in, I would be low. So that's why I do it that way. Also then it's in a jug, and it means that when I come to get rid of it, I can put it straight into this empty bottle. So we want 900. There we go, right. So you can see the principle there. I'm measuring what came out, putting the same amount back in, and that's why we check the oil level first before we drain anything out. Right, let's get it in the bike. Okay, bit of common sense. Ain't odd, is it? I'm here for thinking, ain't it? I'm going to pop the torch there so I can look down at that oil level and watch it coming up. Should be absolutely the same level. As you can just see it touching. Got it? Mm-hmm. There we go. Precisely the same level it was. Perfect. Right, so there we are. What I've done is use the old level that I know was correct to make sure I get this level correct. If you put the old mentality of just a bit more, you know, oh, that will look after it, give it a bit more. No, it won't. that will cause problems. If you overfill a primary case, then you will end up with the clutch dragging, because that, like I said just a little while ago, as that level rises, it will rise, and then that oil level will go up between the clutch plates themselves. The oil level sits at the bottom of the clutch plates. They kind of spin away, the clutch kind of spins away just above the oil level, and then those plates can open up and close, and that's all fine. If the oil level's higher, then the bottom of the clutch is bathed in oil. It's sitting in a pool of oil, and that's all bad, because that oil will act like a glue. It will stick them plates together. They won't properly separate. You pull the clutch in, nothing will happen. It will just keep going. It will drag horribly, and you'll never get neutral. When you put it in gear, it will go in with an almighty bang, and it will just feel like you're going to break everything. So in this instance with a primary case, the level is critical. If it's too low, that's not good either. I mean, too low, then you can overheat the clutch, because it must have a little bit of oil splashing around it just to stop it getting hot and burning, and that can buckle the plates, and that will mean a new clutch. So again, finally, the oil level in your primary is critical. Right, let's put the case back on. Okay, when we put it all back together, it pays to take a little bit of time and make sure that you do it carefully and to a high standard, so that when you come to undo it in the future, it comes apart easily. First thing to inspect is these screws. The screws that do this up are notorious for mincing out, but I'm very happy. You see there that the head is perfect. There's no disruption to it, it's not chewed in any way, it's lovely. Now the reason for that is it's a stainless steel one, and I look at all of them, all 5 of these screws that I just took out, and they are stainless, and they've got stainless washers, and that would be a wise investment for you to make. Derby cover screws on a Harley Davidson from the factory are made out of stale pastry. They are truly dire, and they will mince up the second time you touch them. So if you get the time, and if you can spare a few pounds, buy yourself some stainless steel Torx screws for your Derby cover, and just install them one at a time. Stainless screws tend to be more prone to fall out or come loose than mild steel screws do, which is the original factory ones. The mild steel screws, you'll get that little bit of galvanic corrosion and it will hold them in. These stainless ones don't suffer with galvanic corrosion, so they won't necessarily stay in unless you put just a dab of thread lock. I'd rather put a little bit of thread lock on and use a lovely stainless screw that won't mince than I would put those crappy factory ones back in that you did just fall apart in no time. Right, next thing is the gasket. This is a brand new gasket. That's the one from the factory, and that's the old one. As you can see, exactly the same gasket, but the difference is you've got this ridge which gets pressed into it when it's bolted up tight against the engine case, and that's what it's like when it's brand new. Simple as that. Now what I'm going to do for today, I'm going to put the old one on, because I'm going to get back to this casing for the next video. Next video is going to be video 3, that'll be a clutch adjustment, probably a very popular video in the future. But Harley Davidson Softail clutch adjustment, that's a massive subject, and I want to attack it independently in a single video, quite short, just how to adjust this nut here. It's very important, very critical to make sure it's correct. So that will be the next video, which means I don't want to bolt this casing back on full up to Torx spec with a brand new gasket. In the next video, take it off. I just want to cover up that hole, so between now and the next video we don't get any birds or mice nesting in there, do we? Simple as that. Well, it is a Harley after all. Right, so simplest way forward, take one of the screws, pop it through the top hole. Now if you look at the inside of your case, my casing's got wording around it. If you want to know which way it orientates, if you look on the inside, they always put the logo at the top. So put one screw through the top, and upon that hang your gasket on that one top screw. That will just locate the gasket correctly, and as you can see it says towards clutch. Ain't hard, is it? I'm going to pop that one in, and these are just going to get 3 or 4 turns on each one just to hold the casing in place. All I'm doing is closing the door on this, that's it. Not going to do that up properly at all, so that big gaping hole in the side of the motor is closed for the next few days while we make the next video. Okay.
That's right, because we couldn't do it all in one hit.
No, that's been the purpose of this series of videos. I don't want to make a 4-hour video, and a full service on a Harley Softail is about 3 or 4 hours, especially when you start thinking about doing the full coil as well, which we're going to do. So rather than make that one video, as you said, or as we said, it's going to be 5 or 6 separately. So that's it. I've just literally screwed that in place for now. That'll keep that closed. So join us in the next video. In the next one, the very next one we do, we're going to take that back off quickly and we're going to get at that clutch and do a proper clutch adjustment on how to do it. It's very simple, very straightforward, but it is a critical procedure. It has to be right, and I'll give you a little bit of explaining how and why, like we do on this channel, so you can understand it a bit better. Then after that, number 4 will be the primary chain, because inside here is that massive chain we spoke about. That chain has a certain amount of tension, it has to be set, and that's checked every service, so that's something else we have to do. So next one, video 3, clutch adjustment, then video 4 will be primary chain adjustment, and finally then we'll button the whole lot up, torque that back up to its settings, and that's it. And just finally, one more thing, if you're doing this and you're putting that back to its torque setting, the torque setting for this will be 10 to 12 foot-pounds. So you torque this up to between 10 or 12 foot-pounds, click once, and that's it, done up, simple as that. Preferably a new gasket. Always use a new gasket if you can. New gaskets mean you're not going to get any issues in the future. And like I said, in the middle of it all, now that's got oil in it, blow dry. Simple as that. Anything else, Ben?
That's it. Hope that helped.
Hope that helps. That's been number 2. Thank you for watching this series. We hope by the time we get to number 6, it forms a fantastic library for the Softail owner to be able to learn a little bit about their bike and take that bit more care of it and save an awful lot of money. Anything else, Ben?
That's it. Thank you.
Take it easy. Thanks for watching. Ride safe. See you next time.